Reddit, what is your best teenage f***up story? Story 1. I TP'd toilet paper someone's house with some friends. The cops came. My friends scattered. I stupidly tried to hide behind a bush. Someone saw my body lying still behind the bush. I guess I looked like I was a dead body. The guy called the cops back because he thought he had stumbled upon a murder scene. After 20 more minutes of lying still, scared because this guy had his headlights trained on me, the cops came and found I was alive after giving me a light kick. They were cool and gave me a ride home. Story 2. I was 13 and I just got back from Korea. Being a kid, the only souvenirs I brought back were BB guns. I had this toy Glock 23 that was pretty real looking. Anyway, during summer vacation, I was hanging out at my friend's house and I had brought along my BB guns. I lent my friend the Desert Eagle and I took the Glock. We were both really into Counter-Strike back then. We made believe that we were in one of the Counter-Strike maps. I believe it was CS Siege or D Nuke, but that's not relevant to the story here. They had one of those driveways that ran along the side of the house with a garage on one end and the street at the other. This becomes important later on. Being the stupid-ass punk kids we were, we realized, hey, this isn't real Counter-Strike without sniping. But no, we weren't going to snipe each other. Oh, no. That would be too boring. We were going to shoot complete strangers. 'Cause that's real Counter-Strike make-believe. Just then, the Song of My People started playing. The ice cream truck had arrived. We looked at each other and traded Return of the Jedi nods, and I quickly scurried over to the garage. The plan was to shoot the ice cream truck the moment when it would cross our view. My friend bet me $2 I couldn't hit the ice cream truck. It was about 50 feet or so, and I scoffed at his implication that I was a sniping noob. "It's on," I said. So there I was, lying prone on the ground using a toy Glock 23 as a sniper rifle, about to unleash my yellow BB hell on this ice cream truck. The ice cream truck popped up in my sights and I fired a single shot straight at it. Then we heard it, a deafening, chilling scream. We freaked out and ran away to the baseball field 2 to 3 blocks away. Neither one of us had any idea what had just happened. 30 minutes or so went by and my friend got a message on his beeper. Holy crap, I'm old. And it was his mom's number, along with a 911, which was code for "I'ma whoop your butt, get home." He looked at me and I knew that we had no choice but to turn ourselves in. As a safety measure, we ditched our BB guns at the home plate and began the walk of shame. Once we got to his house, nothing had prepared me for what was waiting for us. There were 2 patrol cars with flashing lights, and they wanted an explanation. Apparently, this ice cream truck was running quite an unusual business model. Whereas a normal ice cream truck usually has one person operating as a drink or server, this ice cream truck was running a 2-man cell. One drove and another one sat in the ice cream truck's window to serve younglings. My pro sniper shot apparently was perfectly aimed. It sailed right into the ice cream truck's side window and nailed the server in the ear. The lobe alone was swollen to about the size of a quarter. The ice cream guy, about 6'4", 200 plus pounds, or at least it seemed that way at the time, took one look at me and immediately said that he didn't want to press charges, but he just wanted an apology. I and my friends apologized and confessed to our alter egos as pro snipers to the cops. They asked where we had hidden our weapons, and we reluctantly told them. "Let's go pick them up," said an officer. It was my first and only ride in the back of a patrol car. It was a mixed bag of feelings containing "I'm Bart Simpson badass" and "oh my god, please don't put me in jail." We picked up the BB guns, and afterwards the cops brought me to my house. Nobody was home, so they asked me to get the house phone and call my parents. I did as I was told, all the while scared shitless. They explained to my shocked, conservative Korean parents that their son was headshotting ice cream workers. It was safe to say I was but that wasn't all. The cops asked me if I had a hammer handy. Confused, I said yes, and they ordered me to get it and bring it over. Once I did, they told me to break my BB gun with it. My only souvenirs from my father's homeland, and they wanted me to destroy them with my own hands. Cruelty beyond words. It killed me to do it, but I did it. It was better than going to jail, I told myself. When it was all over, there I was, in my driveway, hammer in my hand, and slouched over the remains of my Glock 23 and Desert Eagle BB guns, freaking out over what my parents would do when they arrived home in a few hours. As the cops were leaving, I think they gave a light chuckle as they flashed their lights one last time and drove off. Bloop bloop. That was a sound I'll never forget. It was the sound of that summer ending right there. At least for me. Story 3. I have a couple of these. 8th grade. My grades started going from awesome to that year, so naturally I scanned my report card, opened it up in Microsoft Paint, and changed the grades using a copy and paste tool on MS Paint. This was like 15 years ago, but still, what the was I thinking? It was pathetic, and I can't believe I wasn't caught the instant I gave the fake to my mother. A few weeks later, I did this for a friend, and his mom called my mom. That was a shitty summer. 9th grade. I was at this Cottonmouth Kings concert, embarrassing, and this kid that was in my group of friends brought a big bag of mushrooms. They had a pizza cart right on the floor of this show, so naturally we brought like 2 slices between the 5 of us and dumped the shrooms all over them. It was my first time tripping. I had no idea what I was doing. I was high as balls and spent the rest of the show on Smoker's patio watching my friends puke for like an hour. The concert ended and my mom came to pick all of us kids up. She could instantly tell that we were trashed and must have thought it was hilarious. Just to mess with me and my friends, my mom parked the car in a grocery store parking lot and sent 5 kids into the store with $50 and a list of stuff we had to get. My friends and I spent the next hour and a half in the grocery store absolutely freaking out, looking like idiots and buying the wrong stuff. Worst mushroom trip ever. I was a terrible kid and my mom handled it to the best of her capability. I love that woman. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot and it helps us out a ton. Anyway, back to the stories. Story 4. My brother was a fuck-up. He went to jail for heroin possession over the summer. My dad agreed to bail him out, but he had to stay in the house the entire time until his court case. My dad helped him out with everything over that time. Got him new clothes, took him to the doctors and dentists, even offered to take him to the outpatient rehab in the next town over. One day after my dad took him to the dentist, had to pay out of pocket because he was 19, my brother came home with not a single thank you or anything. He snuck out of the house when my dad wasn't looking, and my dad was so pissed so he locked him out and said he was done with him. 4 days later, my father died of a heart attack. I try not to blame my brother, but he was responsible for 90% of his stress. Story 5. Something similar happened to me and my group of friends in high school. We were playing with fireworks on a golf course at night. The course is in the desert and surrounded by sagebrush. This massive rocket is so top-heavy that it pulls over the PVC pipe we were going to launch it out of. This bastard takes off at about a 15-degree angle, way off into the brush. As soon as it took off, there was this collective gasp. Then the report happens, just massive flames and sparks, followed by so much brush instantly catching fire. By this time, we were all running like hell to the place it landed. When we got there, everybody just went into MacGyver mode to put out the individual bushes. It was seriously like the most choreographed fight-or-flight adrenaline-fueled thing I have ever seen. Each person used literally every trick we could think of to put it out. Everyone is stomping like crazy, some are trying to pee on the bushes, shirts and sweatshirts are being used like fire blankets, and all of our beers are being used as fire extinguishers. Finally, after 10 minutes or so, we put it all out. We obviously left immediately, but when we had regrouped at a nearby park, we finally realized how haggard we were. We looked like war refugees, half-dressed, shoes melted, the people that had flip-flops are now shoeless, and some people ended up with light burns and charcoal all over their faces and bodies. After seeing this, we had a good belly laugh at our luck, and then we promptly disbanded to try and get to bed without being caught. I slept well that night. Story 6. I was 14 years old and had recently discovered this little activity we called power boxing, shutting off the power to a home. I thought it would be really funny to sneak into the yard of my neighbors and shut off their power. Well, I waited in the bushes to watch them come out and try and figure out what happened. So I shut off the power and lay waiting. Nothing. I figured they must already be asleep, so I went home feeling let down that my stupid prank didn't create a ruckus at all. A week later, that family came home from vacation to find out that their power had been shut off. Their newly landscaped yard had been killed off by the 100+ degree Fahrenheit heat. Many trees died and the grass was yellow/brown, costing thousands to replace. The ice maker in their freezer also melted and spilled gallons of water onto their nice wood floors, warping the wood and permanently damaging the flooring. They also had a large industrial-sized freezer in their garage full of frozen meat, more specifically salmon from their annual Alaska fishing trip. All of it had gone rotten and stunk to the high heavens. My mom caught wind of our neighbor's misfortune and immediately sensed her troublemaker son had something to do with it. She confronted me on the issue and I confessed and approached the neighbors to confess my misdeed. He was really cool and told me that confessing must have been really hard, and that if I helped with yard work during the summer, he would forgive me. Story 7. My stepmom inherited a genuine Tiffany lamp from the 1880s or so. She put it in a cardboard box, wrapped it in blankets, and put it under our ping pong table. I wanted to move the ping pong table up against the wall to play solo off the backboard, or whatever you call it. So as I moved the table, the box was in the way. I shoved it with my foot. I heard glass break and thought little of it. I figured it was a light bulb or something cheap. We didn't have anything nice in our house, so breaking something wasn't all that upsetting. Later that day, in passing, I told my dad I broke something. He said, "What is it?" "I don't know," I replied. "Something glass inside that blanket box under the ping pong table." His face went white. He walked away and went upstairs to check and told my stepmom. I heard her yell, "What?" Later that night, he told me what was in it that I broke. The lamp is worth tens of thousands. It had been passed down through the generations of women on her side to end up in her hands. She had it for 24 hours before one of her 5 boys had broken it. She hardly stopped crying for 2 days. 100 years? No problem. 24 hours with me, and it's destroyed. Story 8. I was 16 and had just started smoking. We went to a baseball game as a family. I told my family that I had to go to the bathroom when all I really wanted was to find someone to bum a cigarette off of. I found a group of younger-looking people smoking. I approached and asked for a cigarette. They gave me one, and then we sat there talking for a few minutes. They then invited me to go to the beer garden with them. I told them I was 16, and they said they were fine with that. One of the guys ordered me a rum runner, and we drank and talked. I lost track of time, but I think 30 minutes went by. Next thing I know, my uncle walked into the bar, saw me, and approached the table. He looked around the table in disgust and said, "She's 16!" He then grabbed my arm and we left. He kept asking me to blow in his face and accused me of drinking beer. I was adamant that I had not drunk beer because I hadn't, and I was kind of a smartass. We returned to my seat and my aunt was crying. They thought I had been abducted. I felt terrible. I was grounded for the rest of the summer and could do nothing but work and come home. Looking back, I realized how dumb I was. I still feel bad about it, but it was a good time though. Story 9. My brother and his friends decided it would be fun to shoot a propane tank wrapped in a gasoline-soaked towel, which was fun because they decided the middle of a barren cow pasture was the best place to do it, and it is. Bang, boom, wow. Everyone was happy and satisfied, except for Tim, who decided it would be fun to show some of his friends. Now, Tim was only 14 at the time and loved weed. Tim decides to replicate the fun times in the backyard of his parents' house, which happens to be a part of a forest. He and his friends set up the propane tank. Bang, boom, wow. Now it's time to go inside and take some bong rips. They come back outside to a raging fire. Tim grabs a hose and the fire department eventually gets called for what ended up being a 150-plus acre forest fire. Tim's parents are held liable and now they have to pay a fine. Luckily, no one died and Tim's parents' house didn't burn down. Story 10. So I, my brother, and our friend decided to make a sparkler bomb. About 100 sparklers all scraped off into a cup, which we then light on fire with a sort of fuse. We had everything good and ready to go, then just while lighting it, one of the sparks managed to jump from our shitty fuse into the bomb immediately after my mate lit it, causing the whole thing to violently explode right in his face. We then had to carry him from the relatively dodgy storm drain nearby home to the house and chuck him in a pool. This was about the time that we realized his face was starting to peel off and tentatively decided to wake up the parents. Story 11. This happened in 2008. I and my friends were playing outside every single day. Even though it had rained a lot that day, we went out to play at the construction site, which was an open field with high sands hills. The rain made the sand into mud, which gave me the perfect idea. We took our boots and went to the side. I told my friend to jump into these piles of sand, which were now acting as quicksand because of the intense rain the day before. I also made jumps, but not as long as I challenged him to do next. 1 whole minute of staying in the mud while sinking down. I knew that this would probably work, so I tried pushing the limit as much as I could. Please note that we were both doing this and we were just having a little fun. Then it happened. He quietly told me in this voice, "I'm stuck." Mission accomplished. Now things started going wrong. He couldn't get out, so we needed help. My dad actually saw us playing there and he noticed something wrong. He went over and tried pulling my friend out with my help. It didn't work. Little did we know that 5 minutes later, the streets stood full of ambulances, police, and fire trucks. They got him out and it was all good. We had some very nice laughs off that later. Story 12. threw a party when I was 13 with my best friend who was 16 and my sister who was 15. My best friend invited a couple of her friends from school who invited a couple of really sketchy dudes. They stole a computer from a national lab that my best friend's dad worked at, as well as a couple of $100 and 2 Razr cell phones when they first came out. We tried to hide it for a couple of days to get the shit back ourselves, but we couldn't. The cops had to be called because of the computer. My mom was pissed, and so was my best friend's dad, obviously. We had to go and sit with the cops and tell them what had happened, and they gave us a very stern talk. It was awful for a good 3 months. None of our parents trusted us, and my mom put us on pocket time, which my mom does instead of grounding. Basically, if we wanted to do anything, that's fine, but she is going to do exactly what we're doing. If we wanted to go to the mall and walk around, she's there hanging out. If we want to go eat somewhere, she's there hanging out. Basically, you just can't escape her. If she couldn't go, she would just send another adult. Usually it was the guy who was living with us at the time to hang out with us. In the end, everyone got over it and forgave us for being stupid teenagers. None of us had lied to our parents since though, so I guess something good came out of it. Story 13. My friends and I took a trip with this family to Colorado. We stayed at a very nice resort with cabins right next to a river. We were probably 16 at the time. At night, after his parents went to sleep, we would sneak out of our window and steal beers from other people's coolers around the park. I know we were bastards, but it didn't take much to get our young asses drunk. So, amidst the beer drinking, we decided to relive our childhood and throw rocks at cars. This was a common practice among the two of us, and yes, I agree, we were total shitheads. Anyhow, on the last night of our vacation, we were in the usual routine of a few beers and waiting for cars to drive by on the lonesome mountain road. We hid in the trees and waited for headlights to approach from the distance. Rocks in hand, we braced for the moment, and when the truck got in range, we both let him fly. Both rocks hit. Mine hit a wheel, and my friend's hit a wheel well and made an echoing whoomp. The driver slammed on the brakes immediately. This was uncommon. Most cars just kept driving. He busted a U-turn better than most police pursuit videos and was screaming down the road honking at us, as he saw us running through the middle of the resort under a lamp. I would also like to clarify that we weren't chucking boulders or anything. Dime-sized pebbles were the standard practice. We didn't want to ruin people's lives, but then again, I'm not exactly sure what the f*** our intentions were. Anyhow, the truck slams on its brakes immediately and we panic. We're professional shitheads at this point in our mischief careers and we knew better than to run back to our cabin. So instead, we ran across the park and down to some other cabins and hid by the creek. My friends and I became separated at one point and we eventually found each other and devised our escape plan. I peeked out from behind a cabin about 150 yards from where we initially entered the woods and saw a police cruiser parked in front of the cabin we ran behind. That poor bastard got woken up by a cop asking him if there were kids hiding in his cabin. Sorry about that, man. Our only option was to take a long hike out into the field behind our cabin, but out of view from the police, and cabin where the aforementioned angry man was. We crawled for what seemed like about a quarter mile into the field, and sprinted to the wooden beam fence that bordered the resort property. This field was a vast open area with grass about 18 inches tall, just tall enough for us to lay prone in it and remain hidden as another car passed on the road with its headlights illuminating the entire field. Needless to say, we were both beyond scared shitless at this point, but we knew we had to act quickly if we wanted to remain undetected. So we crawled as fast as we could down the fence line until we had to cross the fence. We then had to climb through the fence and remove the screen from the other window in our room that his dad had fixed with superglue after we broke it in one of our first escapades. This window was also the window that I decided to leave unlocked for no apparent reason at the time, but the decision paid off. Why is this window so important? The window was on the opposite side of the cabin, out of view from the police and the complainant. I managed to rip the screen off and dive through the window with my friend close behind. We got in, shut the windows, and then we went to check out front to see if the police were still there. They were, right in front of our cabin, looking around in the trees where we threw the rocks from. So we quietly changed clothes and remained as quiet as possible, praying that there wouldn't be a knock at the door. After a restless night, we got up in the next morning and packed our shit as fast as we could and got out without any further incident. That was such a close call that scared us so badly that we never did any dumb shit ever like that again. But it does make for some fond memories and a long story to type out on an iPhone. Thinking back, we should have, and just as easily could have, ended up in a Colorado County jail that night. Thankfully, we were spared.